Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Behaalosecha. And we are dedicating this week's learning, as I record it, this is the 613th day of captivity for all of the 56 hostages remaining in Gaza. And this number of 613 should be an inspiration and an elevation, just like Behaalosecha means when you raise up, when you elevate. Please God, we should use this day as an opportunity to elevate, to create the right conditions, God willing, for the speedy and safe release of all of the hostages and the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF as they are rising up, as they are elevating themselves and all of us with their heroism, with their rising to the occasion, to the call of who is for Hashem, and they are rising and they are responding to that call. And in the merit of all of this, we should witness the salvations, the Yeshuas that we are so fervently praying for. And we come to this Sedra of Behaalosecha. It may seem like a long time ago, but Shavuos, Chag Zman Matan Torah, the festival that we celebrate, the receiving of the gift of the Torah, is just over a week ago. And so when we read, and for a change, we're going to go from the middle sections of the Sedra and then back to the beginning as a way of gleaning the messages that are so relevant for us today. We see in chapter 10, verse 33, the pasuk Vayisu mehar Hashem derech shloshes yomim, and they journeyed from the mountain of Hashem a way of 3 days. And the Medrash quoted in Tosfos tells us that they were in a very great hurry to get away from the mountain of Hashem, which was Har Sinai, and they were worried that if they stayed around, then they would get more homework, and they compared to children who are running away from school at the end of the day in order to avoid getting more work. And this attitude is, if we can pinpoint the time and the reason for what seems to be a downward progression from this point onwards in the book of Bamidbar. This is it. And again, this is something that we take to heart, that we don't want to run away from Har Hashem. We've seen, number one, that what we receive from Hashem is always for our benefit. And when we make those efforts and when we refine ourselves in the way that the Torah teaches us, this is something that is for the benefit of us as individuals, us as a nation, and for the whole world. And this is what the Bnei Yisrael are experiencing when we are reading about their responses and what happens to them in the Midbar. This is very often a symbol of the human condition, but we are learning, we are given the opportunity by studying the words of the Torah to learn from and remedy the defects that cause the problem. And at this point, they then continue and they start complaining. And this is called the first complaint and rebuke. And the complaint very quickly goes in the direction of complaining about the mon, and they are saying that they're fed up. The words that they actually use are very telling, something that we can again use to understand the deeper message, their malaise. And they say that that they remember with such nostalgia the delicious foods that they had in Egypt. And if ever there was an example of people being delusional, I mean, what kind of delicious food did they have in Egypt? And even if they did have food that was vaguely edible, then the circumstances in which they were eating it ought to have taken away any kind of relish that they had for that food. But they are almost in a state of suspended reality. And they are saying, chapter 11, verse 5, Zacharnu es hadaga asher nocha b'Mitzrayim. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt, chinom, for free. And Rashi again identifies looking at this word, because how could they say it was for free? They were slaves. They were working in lieu. They may not have been paid wages, but they were paying with the sweat of their brow and their backbreaking labor. Chinam min ha-mitzvahs, we are told, that there was no obligation to keep mitzvahs, and therefore they put on rose-tinted glasses, and they suddenly think of the experience of slavery in Egypt as being some kind of gourmet desert holiday. And then they carry on and they describe vegetables. Es hakishuim, es ha'avatichim, es hachotzir, es ha'psolim, es ha'shomim. The cucumbers, the watermelons, the leeks, the onions and the garlic. And then, very tellingly, va'ata nafshenu yavesha. Now our souls are parched dry. Ein kol. There isn't everything. Bilti El Hamon Inenu. But there's only this mon in front of our eyes. So the food that they got lechem min hashamayim, without having to put any kind of work, that now seems to be actually the source of their dissatisfaction, the source of their lack of gratitude. And again, this is a human condition, perhaps, that when we are not engaged, when we are not contributing, when we are not feeling fulfilled, then very quickly our attitudes and our words and our actions turn negative. And we can see that so clearly with this. And so if we are able to identify the problem, then we are going to be able to, however many generations later, apply it to ourselves, understanding that we don't want to run away from Mount Sinai. We will leave Mount Sinai. We will journey towards Eretz Yisrael that has been promised to us. But it's not something that we should do with glee. We want to try to savor the experience. Shavuos, so a relatively short time ago, to still feel that uplift, to still feel that proximity, to want to stay in the shadow of Hashem's direct communication with us, and be uplifted. And this is something that, if we look to the earlier points in the Sedra, we are able again to find the tikkun, to find the examples, the people, the attitudes that are going to help us when we are sometimes feeling despondent, when we are in the kind of mood that we read about in these verses, that we can look and we can see that there are inspirations that we can follow. And how many inspirations do we have in our own times of the heroic Yisrael, the Chayalim, the soldiers who are risking life and limb to answer the call, to come to the defense of Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and Yisrael all over the world. These are our modern day inspirations. But then if we go to the Sedra, we'll see that we have inspirations and people who teach us with their attitude the correct way to think and behave. And we have earlier on in the Sedra the people who were not able to bring the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, in the correct, in the appropriate time on the 14th of Nisan. And because they were there, we'll go to the actual source of what happened, and this is chapter 9, verse 6. Vayehi anashim asher hayu tmeim lenefesh odom velo yochlu lasos hapesach. And there were people that were ritually impure due to contact with a dead person, and they could not bring the Paschal offering on the day that it was meant to be brought. And they come and they say to Moshe and to Aaron, and they say, Lama nigora levilti hakrif es korban Hashem. Why should we lose out from bringing the korban of Hashem, from bringing the offering of Hashem? And here we have a group of people who had a legitimate reason why they were excused from bringing the Korban Pesach. And again, we have a tikkun. Before we read about the source of the problem, the source of the downward spiral that we mentioned earlier, they are not looking at the korban, and the word korban we've mentioned talks about a closeness with Hashem. They are not looking at that as a burden. They're not looking on that as an expense. They are saying, why should we lose out? They realize that if we are not in a position to keep a mitzvah, then we are going to be the losers. Now, that doesn't give us the license to say, I want to do every single mitzvah in the Torah, whether it applies to me or not. I can say, I would like to be the Kohen Gadol. That's not the message. That's not what's being described here. These are people who come respectfully to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Aaron, and they say, we want to bring this special korban, and if we can identify the korban Pesach as the korban that made us a nation. This was the very our bravery as a nation to bring that paschal lamb, the God of Egypt, at the command of Hashem, and they realize its significance, and therefore they say, why should we lose out? They realize that even though they have a valid reason, they are still losing out by not doing it. And therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu consults with Hashem, and Hashem says that they will have the opportunity to bring it with modifications on the 14th of Iyar, 1 month later, that this is the representation. This is our our opportunity to look to these people and to say, this is who we are going to learn from. And I think if we then go to the very beginning of the Sedra and we look at the word Behaalosecha, when you raise up, and this is addressed to Aaron HaKohen, and the rabbis point out that this comes soon after the gifts of the princes towards the end of last week's Sedra of Noso. And Aaron, according to the Medrash, says, I feel I am excluded. I have missed out on an opportunity. Again, this idea of missing out when I cannot bring something for Hashem, when I cannot do a mitzvah. And so Hashem says, you will have the mitzvah of rising, causing the flames of the menorah to light up. And this is a message to the leadership, a message that the leadership need to be able to inspire the people with rising up the light. The light of the menorah is the symbol of that inspiration. And even though that particular job was going to involve daily menial tasks to clean out the what was left behind from the previous night and to prepare and to light the new light of the day. But this was a gift to Aaron, and this was viewed upon as a gift to Aaron, by Aaron. And in this way, that is the source of our enthusiasm. And although it is a message to the leaders, and Aaron as the Kohen Gadol is the symbol of our one of the second most important leader at the time. But when we say Behaalosecha, when you raise up, it is also talking to each and every one of us as individuals to be sources of light, to be sources of inspiration to those around us. And in this way, when we go from the point of identifying where the problem started and why they started, and then traveling backwards to what is described in the Sedra that we can use as a tikkun, as a repair, to remedy, to prevent these kind of faults and incorrect attitudes happening, then we are able to learn from our mistakes and please God see the true tikkun of everybody appreciating the value of the Torah, appreciating the value of the mitzvahs, and we are then able to take the gift of the Torah that we received last week and really shine within and without. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.